Japan's new leader has laid out his government's priorities, and top of the agenda, tackling COVID-19. Yoshihide Suga has been speaking at his first news conference as Prime Minister, and he has promised to stick closely to policies championed by his predecessor. And Professor Kotaro Tamura from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy joins us now. Professor, so Mr. Yoshihide Suga we know that he has kept many of Mr. Abe's key ministers in his cabinet, a sign that we're going to see more of the same from the Abe era. Is that it?
Yes and no. Of course, he, in a sense, used to be a prime minister. So people call him shadow prime minister because he took care of almost all internal affairs while Abe-san hopped around the world, visiting 80 countries in the last 80 years. So Abe-san was the face of Japan, and Suga-san is a get a job done person. There's a division of labor between the two. So it's natural to succeed the policy. And as to the Abenomics, he's a key founding member of the Abenomics himself, so it's natural to succeed. But there is a very striking difference. There's two Ds, digitization and the decentralization of Tokyo. So digitization and the decentralization of Tokyo is naturally happening in the wake of coronavirus pandemics because the many things you can do online. So Tokyo people is gradually and steadily relocating themselves to outskirts of Tokyo. So having a bigger house and getting a Tokyo salary, quality of life is improving. It's good for them and it's good for the country. Having Tokyo, centralized 40% of the total population of Japan and 60% of the GDP is quite healthy, quite unhealthy, and quite risky. And Japan is such a disaster-poor country. Typhoon is hitting quite often these days and getting bigger, and the big earthquake might be coming soon. So having multiple economic center is good. So coronavirus, as a result, is accelerating that trend. And it can be a good stimulus to local economy. Suga-san would like to accelerate that two trend, digitization, setting up the new minister for digitization, and assigned very radical reformer to the position of Minister of Local Autonomy, promotion of local autonomy. I think digitization, decentralization, and as a result, help rescue the ailing local economy. Is Suga new color.
So for years, Mr. Suga, just coming back to what we know about him, we know that he's defended the Abe government's policies as the government's chief spokesperson, as you alluded to briefly then. How much do we know, though, about Suga's own policy preferences? Do you think he'll lean heavily into sort of domestic issues, as you were mentioning?
But, international issue is very urgent, especially the U.S.-China tension is mounting. And we are stuck in the middle of the two titans. U.S. is a very important ally for national security reasons. We have the largest U.S. base in our soil in the world. And for China, Suga-san is very pro-business for local economy and the national economy. Now China is the largest trade partner for Japan. Both export and import to and from more than 20% of the total trade. So China is very important. We need to take a balance. And yes, Suga-san's new challenge is diplomacy. But as I have mentioned, Suga-san's policy is very much overlapping Abe-san because there's a division of labor. Suga-san was the shadow prime minister, and the spotlight prime minister was Abe-san. Abe-san was the face of Japan. And, as with the academics, it's, mainly from Suga-san's idea. So it's very natural overlapping. But new color is help rescue the ailing economy by digitizing and decentralization of Tokyo, digitization of small and medium business and the big business as well, and the decentralization, Tokyo relocating businesses and the people from Tokyo to local cities and try to make multiple economic center happens in Tokyo. That's Suga-san's color. So I think gradually Suga-san will increase his own policies. But naturally, it's overlapping a lot with Abe-san.
Okay, speaking of coming into his own, there's a lot of talk of snap elections. When do you think it's going to happen?
So Suga-san is a doer and a workaholic. He wants his job get done. But in order to get his job done, it takes time to achieve his political goal. But the term left for him is almost 1 year. 1 year is not enough to achieve his goal. So he might try to buy a time by calling election and try to grasp the victory. I think it's a right time. And he used to be head of the campaign in LDP. He knows how to win the election. Together with Prime Minister Abe, he won national election 6 times in a row. Only hesitation he has that it's a good timing to call election in the middle of pandemic. So that's the part we can learn from Singapore. Singapore government called the election in the middle of pandemic, and they won. So he might carefully study the case of Singapore. So we can learn from Singapore many ways how to call the election in the middle of pandemic, or how to digitize our own economy. So my guess is he will call the election within this year, probably after the presidential election result came in and before the year end, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your thoughts. As always, Professor Kotaro Tamura from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy.